Hello. One of the things that I've come to learn is that most people don't know how publishing works, and I don't mean the publishing where your friend has written a book on their own and they're listing it on Amazon. I mean traditional publishing, the old-fashioned way, the proper way of getting published by a publishing house. So we're stripping it right back to the beginning. I do other videos on publishing if you're interested, so subscribe if you want to find out more. But for now, we're going right back to the basics and we're talking about what is publishing and how does it work? How do authors go from writing something on their Word document to getting it on a shelf in Waterstones? So publishing as a whole, there are obviously lots of different types of publishing. There's like boutique publishing, there's magazine publishing, there's textbooks, there's journals, there's digital publishing, ebooks, audiobooks, there's academic, there's educational, and there's trade, which is mainly what I'm going to be talking about today. Trade publishing, the publishing where you go on holiday and you pick up a reading book and it's that sort of thriller fiction book. How does that actually get published? So publishing houses are the companies that allow that to happen. They take the book through the whole entire process of going from an author and an agent to getting it sold and marketed, and essentially in readers' hands. Examples of publishers that you probably have come across, even if you don't know anything about publishing, Penguin Random House being the biggest one. You've also got some other big ones like Hachette, Simon & Schuster, HarperCollins, Pan Macmillan, medium ones such as Bloomsbury, Bonnier Books UK, Faber, Pearson, Nosy Crow. There are so many out there. The way that publishing works as well is you can start off as a really small publisher and get acquired by a big publisher and become an imprint of that publisher, which is basically like a type of list, a type of genre. So I work in publishing. I have done for a few years. I started off in the production department and now I work in marketing and publicity, which I'll come to in a second. The way that I see publishing, I've got it written down, is to organise/process material, physical or digital. That was the best way that I could explain it. It's essentially material, so words a lot of the case, unless it's like audiobooks. You are organising that and you're processing that in order to sell it. This can be physical or digital. Let's start from the very beginning. The author is the main point that is consistent throughout the publishing process. The author is the person that writes the book. They write up a first draft. Once they're happy with that first draft, they will then go and query to agents. Agents are the people that are going to represent them. Just like in TV, in talent agencies, it's a similar sort of thing. This can be a really time-consuming thing for writers to do, and it often takes a lot of rejections and a lot of different agents. But with the right person backing you, you will eventually get an agent. Some of the most famous writers, authors out there have had like 12, 15 rounds of rejections before they were successful. So it's one thing to bear in mind if you are a writer and you're watching this because you want to be a published author, just bear that in mind that getting rejected from agents is literally part of the process. So usually what happens is then an agent will decide to represent a writer. The agent will then come to us at a publishing house. They will pick the right publishing house based on the book. For example, if it's a fiction crime book, it's not going to be appropriate to go to a children's publisher with it. The main point of contact the agent makes within a publishing house is the editorial department. The editorial department are what I see as project managers. They are throughout the whole process involved with this book. They are the people that liaise with the authors and the agents most often, but they also liaise with the other departments. It's a very collaborative industry, it's a very collaborative business, but editorial do a lot of the work. Editorial is also the one that people want to work in most. The editor will get that book in, they will read it, they will decide if they want to bring that to what's called an acquisitions meeting. Let's say the editor loves it, it really is going to fit their list within a publishing house. They bring up some research, they do research on the author, they do research on what sales they anticipate, and they bring it to an acquisitions meeting, which has the rest of the departments in publishing in. Editorial will then present that to people and explain why they think, as a pitch, we should bring this on and we should publish this book. So although the editors might be really keen to take this on from the agent and the author, it isn't just down to them, it will be a whole wider discussion. So it will be with people like sales, and they're the people that actually sell in to retailers. So they'll sell in to people like Amazon, Asda and Sainsbury's and Waterstones and WH Smith. They're the people that sort of sell in bulk. If they don't think that that book is going to be right for their retailers and their market, they will have to say, no, I don't think this is going to work, or this is what needs to be changed. A lot of the time the manuscript is delivered ahead of this meeting as well, so people can have a sort of first peek, even if it's just the first chapter. People like marketing and publicity, which is where I work, will weigh in to say, yeah, I think the author would be great to do things like events, or I don't think it's going to be really popular on social media. Design will come in and have initial ideas about what the cover might entail and where it would sit on a bookshelf. The rights and the co-eds team will come in and say how they think it will work in other territories across the world. If all goes well and that pitch is really successful, then we will all decide to take on that acquisition. What then happens is the first round of edits, so that goes through editorial, so they either do it in-house or they will get a freelancer out to do it, and they will do copy editing, line editing. I've got a separate video on the different types of editing as well, so be sure to check that out. It is getting that book in the perfect place, making sure there are no grammatical errors, so it doesn't necessarily matter if the first draft is not complete, because it's almost definitely going to have a lot of rounds of edits anyway. So this is a lot between the editorial team and the author, or the editorial team and the agent, or the editorial team and external freelance editorial people. The sales team will be working hard to get that book pitched to people like Waterstones, and to say something like, you're going to want to buy 2,000 copies of this book and distribute it across your stores. While this is going on, design will also be working up what the cover's going to look like, and design meetings I find so fun. The covers meetings to see how the initial ideas pan out and all the way to the end of the final product is so interesting. Don't judge a book by its cover, but a lot of people do, and the design department are definitely very aware of that. They've got to make sure that the book cover represents what's actually inside, represents the author in the correct way, and represents something that's going to fit within the market. If it's not an attractive cover, people are not going to want to buy it. Also, what's happening is production are working with editorial to make sure that the manuscript is ready for print. As I said, a lot of what I'm talking about today is to do with trade print books as opposed to, say, audiobooks. So they would be doing things like the typesetting and liaising with the printers to make sure that we can actually book this in and we can get this as a physical copy once we have the final manuscript and the final cover. At the same time, again, the rights people and the co-eds people will be going and selling it to internationals. My dog has come to join to tell you all about publishing. Yes. The international and the co-eds teams will be pitching this book to other countries. They'll be seeing if we can translate this book into another language and sell it there. They'll be seeing if we can print loads of copies of it in English and just sell it to other countries. Their whole job is to do with other territories. People like myself in marketing and publicity will be making up the plans to how we're going to promote this book online, through advertising and through author events. So we often work right up until the publication date, which is a key factor in the publishing process. We'll be making all the plans, doing any pre-order activity, and then once the book is out, we shout about it as much as possible. We gather some reviews and we make sure that this book is selling how we wanted it to, based on the P&L report, which is the profit and loss report, to make sure we're on track. Publishing is a bit like a gamble in that sense, in that you don't know how well it's going to be. You're paying the author in advance. I've got a separate video on how authors are paid as well, so check that out, and I put it in the description down below. But you essentially are taking a risk, and that is every book in publishing. Obviously there'll be reforecasted meetings that are going on all the time to make sure you are ahead, anything you can change, any activity that you can be boosting on social media to make sure that those books do sell. You also have people from the digital team, so people that are converting the final manuscript into an ebook ready for people to use on their Kindle and their iPads, and also an audiobook, and that's a whole other department where they will find actors and narrators to actually read out the book and make it a whole separate ISBN, a whole separate product. So then the book is out there, it's up to our warehouse to make sure that copies are delivered in time and to the right places, books get put on the shelves, and customers are the final people to go and read and buy those books. It obviously doesn't happen all the time, start to finish, like that. There are definitely some ways that things are different. So for example, internal commissioning, or IP, which is basically when editorial have the idea for a book and they go and find an author for it and say, this is the idea, we'd like you to be the one to write it. So that's when it's slightly different. Children's books, for example, are also different because you have illustrators to consider. You also have safety testing to consider if there's lift the flaps and things like that with production. All in all, there are a lot of teams and a lot of people that go into producing one book. I haven't even spoken about all the teams such as finance, who obviously deal with a lot of the invoicing and, say, the expense of actually printing the book. I will just say that literally any book that you find on a shelf in a bookshop has had some tireless people working behind it. It is a long and it is a hard process for a lot of the people working in publishing. It's never as simple as it seems, just like anything and any product that you see in a shop, but books are definitely the case, and I can say that from working in publishing, that there's a lot that goes on, there are a lot of decisions that are made, but it is definitely all worth it when you see those amazing reviews, especially in children's publishing where you can see kids really enjoying it, authors are really happy, and you know, everyone's aim is to be like a #1 bestseller. So that is the way publishing works in a nutshell. That is how a book gets on the bookshelf. If you do want to find out more about how publishing works, as I said, I have loads of videos on this on my channel, so be sure to subscribe to stick around, and thank you for watching.